Hello everyone, welcome to today's VRCut Ready Art to Finish live webinar demonstration series. In this series, we go through the entire workflow process of VRCut software that comes included with a number of Triumph MBM Triumph paper cutters. Each week, we also select a specific topic we want to do a deep dive on. And this week, we'll be going through the technical specifications, both the required hardware and optional hardware, how to install those and how to set up the VRCut controller system on the computer that attaches to the Triumph cutter. This demonstration aims to show you everything that's provided with the purchase of the cutter, that entire workflow from start to finish, and that all you need to provide to utilize that efficiency-driven workflow is an artwork file, hence the Art to Finish name. We start by going through a webinar presentation of the imposition software. We create a number of jobs together from scratch. I will then take those from my screen that we created together and I'll send them over to our printer. Next, we'll cut to a live video presentation of picking those pieces up from the printer and scanning a barcode on the VRCut controller system and going through the cutting sequence process. The idea of the VRCut software is to allow anyone to utilize a paper cutter in a most efficient workflow manner, whether they have lots of experience or none at all. We want to be able to open up the cutting process to more individuals to be able to use so that more customers are able to utilize these shops without having to spend more money in outsourcing. We also want to be able to reduce the amount of time that it takes to create and cut many jobs. With our workflow, whether you have a lot of experience or none at all, you'll be able to do more jobs in less amount of time because all the calculations are figured out for you. And finally, we look to be able to eliminate and reduce the errors that are the risk of error that exists in working through a finishing process. And any time that you have a risk of errors, you often have a risk of completely losing all the value of the job itself. A single miscut can eliminate the razor-thin margins that oftentimes we work in. So we want to be able to ensure that anyone who's using the cutter is always going to be making the most accurate cut with the least amount of work in the least amount of time. VRCut software comes included with the purchase of a number of Triumph paper cutters. These are called the light beam cutters, and the purchase of these machines includes the entire purchase price of the VRCut software for both imposition and the controller system. Anytime you purchase a device, you get everything that we'll be looking at today: a full-fledged imposition and variable data tool, as well as a full-fledged controller system that drives the back gauge of the cutter. The purchase price of this software is $1,800. That's completely included with the purchase of the machine, as well as $600 worth of annual licensing. You get 1 year of annual licensing upon purchase of these machines for a complete $2,400 value at the list base price of the MBM Triumph paper cutters, 5260, the 5560, the 6660, and the 7260. There are no additional add-on fees with this. You get the full year upfront and the purchase of the software with all the base pricing of these machines. That annual licensing includes 1 entire year from the date of installation. So it's not when you purchase the device, but actually when you're ready to begin using it, you get 1 full year of usage of the software included with the purchase. This is award-winning software. It's first of its kind. It allows for 2 softwares actually in one. The imposition software can be installed anywhere in the office, and it's a full-fledged imposition software that creates print-ready PDF files. You simply add in your artwork, select a template that exists, or create a new template based on the paper size you're printing on the cut size of your artwork that you're bringing into the software. Create a print file, we'll print it, and then you'll walk it over and scan a barcode, and on the right side of the screen here, you can see the controller system. Once that barcode is scanned, the controller knows exactly how to move the back gauge. It automatically creates every step in the cutting sequence, moving the back gauge as each cut is made, and displaying to the operator how to manipulate the paper, making rotations, setting stacks aside, bringing stacks back in, and setting the final cut pieces onto a finished pallet. This is all integrated together, and we look to offer a workflow that allows the graphic designer to either be in office and creating print files in the office, or remote through cloud-based workflow. We'll focus a little bit on custom templates, specifically in cloud-based environments and remote environments today, but if you want to get more information about that, please view a previous session in LightRod Live. You can go to www.lightrod.live.com and watch one of our previous sessions that talks more about custom templates. The licensing of the software includes training, support, technical support, as well as, more importantly, ongoing enhancements and developments. I mention this now because custom templates are a new feature that we have pushed out to all users that are on current licensing. We do not have expensive or costly updates that you have to pay for. Everyone who's under a licensing contract gets all updates and new features to the software. We'll be creating two specific jobs, one business card template on 8.5 by 11. That's a preset template, a template that already exists within the software and within the controller system. And we're creating a custom template on the fly together, a brand new job, never done before. We'll create it together, create the template, we'll program the VRCut controller, we'll create a print file that simply needs to be printed out and scanned at the machine, even though it's a brand new job that's been done before. I'm going to hop into the VRCut Impose software now. You should see that on your screen here. And we're going to select New Job. Again, all we're doing here is bringing in artwork when we select the template we want to create, and then we're creating a PDF print file that will be scanned and cut at the cutter. You can always select any job that's in your list on day one, and these are preset templates, over 100 templates that exist out of the box when you install the software initially. These templates are based on popular US-based paper sizes and popular US cut sizes. For example, if you go to 12 by 18 paper, you'll see that you have 2 by 3.5 business cards, 5 by 7 postcards, 4 by 6 postcards, 8 by 10, 8.5 by 11, 2 up. Very commonly cut sizes on this popular US paper size of 12 by 18, ARC B. For today's purposes, I'm going to be doing 8.5 by 11, 2 by 3.5 business cut. If you select on a template, you can get a preview for what that's going to look like. And in this case, we're going to be doing a 2 by 3.5 double cut so that we have room for bleed. We could select single cut, which would get us another row instead of, we would get 8 up or 10 up instead of 8 up. But we do need to have room on all 4 sides so that there's a accommodation for bleed. So that's why we'll be selecting this template. And now turn bleed on. You'll see that the pink area displays in the preview window here to demonstrate where the bleed will show, and I'm going to press finish. I can now preview my what I'm going to look like, but before I do that, I want to point out we always work in a one-up view. This one-up view has one tab for a front side, and if I was in a duplex job, would have a second tab up here for the back side. I can always bring in a front side and a back side artwork to have layouts on both sides. I can always click preview and position to see what my template's going to look like before I bring in my artwork. And I can do that after I bring in my artwork as well. So for what we're going to do is we're going to click on import image, and we're going to find our artwork file that has 2 by 3.5 with a little bit of bleed space. Now I'll select preview and position, and we can see that this artwork is laid out 8 times, and this is how the PDF will be created. Before I create my PDF, I want to zoom in here and show you a little bit about these numbers. These are some proprietary technology that we've invented here, is numbers that match up to the indication on the controller screen during whatever step in the cutting process you're on. This is just another assurance that we give to users to verify that they're making the appropriate cut at the right time and not making a mistake. Something that's automatically applied to the template. And I wanted to just show it to you here so that when we do make the cut, you'll understand that every time the laser beam is lined up on a crop mark, the operator can double check the number that's pointing to that laser beam and match it to the number that's on the sequence step of the controller for that given time. I'm now going to create my PDF file, and I'm going to send it over to the printer. Because this is a preset template, I don't have to do anything else. It's already in the cutter, and it's already in the memory of the imposition tool. I have the software open up the Adobe Acrobat when I create my PDF, and I'll send it over to the printer. Now we're going to create a custom template. I do want to mention that we do have some very advanced variable data technology features that are within this software at no additional charge. But for today's purposes, we're going to be creating static jobs. When you create a static job, you use the Import Image button. These 2 other buttons are for variable data, and I do recommend looking at a previous LightRod Live sessions to learn more about how variable data works and how you can add variable data in multiple different ways to your jobs. For the custom job, we'll also select new job, but instead of selecting it from a list on a template that already exists, we want to create a custom template and add to our library. Whenever you create a custom template, you have this library that's added to the bottom of the list. These are also showing you the preview, and these are full-fledged templates that are ready to be used again when you create a custom template for the second time. I'm going to select custom template. I'm going to name my project based on the specifications of the job, which in this case is 13 by 19, 5.25 by 2. Next time I create this, I like to name this based on the specifications so that when I search for it in the future and I want to create this job again, I simply will type in the specs to find it in the filter, the keyword search filter. Now I'm going to create the specs by adding my paper size of 13 by 19, change this to simplex, and I change my cut size to 5.25 by 2. I'm going to add bleed. As I'm making these changes, you'll notice that the preview window updates, and it shows me exactly what it's going to look like at any given time. I really appreciate this preview window because it lets me play around with different paper sizes and cut sizes to see how many up I'm going to be able to get based on the specific current situation. I can rotate. See, I get 15 up in landscape, but in portrait I get 16 up. So this is the layout we're going to select. I've now saved this template into my imposition library and asked if I want to create a project, which I do. Now we'll simply do the exact same workflow as we did previously. We're going to click on Import Image. We're going to find our artwork, and we're going to create our PDF. Because this is a custom template, after I send this to printer, which I'm going to do now, we have our PDF created. It looks perfect. What I recommend you do is we also need to program the VRCut controller. Now, I go over this in much further detail in our custom templates LightRod Live session that I believe was 2 weeks ago. But for now, you need to select paper cuts, save to VRC, and this VRC file is saved to a mutually pointed to folder. I save it to a folder that I've selected in the settings of my imposition software on the network, and the controller computer has selected options to look for that file in a specific mutually pointed to folder. So that by creating that file in that folder, I have now done everything that's necessary for this custom template to be read and barcode scanned at the controller computer. You can use a network folder for this. In our previous session, we also talked about how you can use a cloud-based Dropbox or other file sharing folder path location. Very easy to do that if you're working remote. It makes it extremely easy for a remote graphic designer to create a job, send a file over to the print shop for printing, and they can pick it up and scan the barcode and be able to utilize the VRCut controller system. I'm going to hop back into my PowerPoint now because I do want to talk about some technology and some best practices for the hardware that's recommended. When you are installing the software, you're presented with a installation kit that has a top side and a bottom half. These can be perfed off and given to 2 different locations, and the top half is for imposition installation. This is generally, as we mentioned before, goes on the graphic designer's computer. You get 1 license seat with the purchase of the machine, but can be very low cost and upgraded to 3 licenses so that multiple graphic designers can be creating print files for the cutter. The bottom half is for the operator of the controller system that will be the operator of the Triumph paper cutter. This computer does have to be hardwired to the cutter, and it's what we're going to focus on a lot of our time today is talking about the system requirements for the computer that's hardwired to the cutter. Most PCs will work. It does have to be a PC with a Windows operating system of Windows 7 or Windows 10, and that's the biggest hardware requirement for that computer. The technical specifications are very, very minimal. As long as you have Windows 7 or Windows 10 and a minimum screen resolution of 1440 by 900 or above, then your computer should be fine. Most people use a Surface Pro, or some people also put a monitor on top of the hood there, and they attach to a low-end desktop computer. You do have to plug the computer into the machine via a USB-A to USB-B printer cable, and we'll go over that visually in a second here, what that cable looks like. We also have some optional add-ons like a barcode scanner, which can also be purchased very affordably online. For this hardware recommendations guide, please go to lightround.com and go to our learnings guide section, and you can download this yourself as you prepare to install the VRCut controller system onto your Triumph cutter. I'm going to now hand it over to the live video screen presentation. We're going to go through how to cut the jobs that we created together today, and we're also going to go through an overview of the hardware specifications and how to install the VRCut controller system to communicate directly with the cutter onto that computer that's attached to the Triumph paper cutter. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to hand it off now.
Thank you, Zach. I'm going to be demonstrating the second half of the VRCut solution, and that is this part of the solution that drives the Triumph cutter. It's the VRCut controller product. As we saw in the first part of the demo, we were creating the artwork, laying that out, and then we are now going to cut that on this very unique solution called VRCut Controller. How we set this all up is a little bit of the backstory that we wanted to cover today before we actually cut the document. What we typically recommend, I've kind of set up here on the table, is just a small tablet. We really like this Surface tablet. In fact, you can get one of the older models. This is a Surface 3. The reason we like this is that it easily sets on top of the cutter. It has a magnetic base, so it stabilizes on the cutter, and that's just a large enough screen for the operator to quickly view the artwork and how to go about cutting the artwork. As you can see for this demonstration, we've actually attached a large screen so that you guys can view it, but this is a more practical solution for the everyday user. The user also needs to have a cable to actually connect the tablet or PC to the cutter itself. Do keep in mind, and I think we reviewed this at the beginning, that there are specifications for the hardware that are on our website under the support called Learning Guides, and they walk you through the requirements. Regarding the PC, you do need to be sure you have a minimum resolution of 1400 by 900. That's probably the most important specification. Also that you have a USB port, because how you connect this to drive the back gauge of the Triumph cutter is with a USB port. So you need at least one USB port on your PC or tablet. And then you're going to connect that. There's actually a connector underneath the cutter. And the other end of that is what I always call a printer USB port. It's kind of a square little port. And you just connect your tablet directly to the cutter. Of course, not all Triumph cutters have this capability. It is the special VRCut, and you'll know that by the branding placard on the front of the cutter, that it is a VRCut Ready cutter. These are sold exclusively in the entire solution by MBM Corporation. We encourage you to work with your local MBM dealer or regional sales manager from MBM, or call the offices directly in North Charleston, South Carolina, where they'll be able to answer any questions regarding these cutters, pricing, and other questions you might have. Lots of information also on their website on that as well. So when you do connect your PC, it will then automatically bring in templates, show you your artwork, and drive the cutter as we saw before. But there's a couple little tips and tricks we kind of learned over the first few years of having this product available. And one that's very convenient is the ability to automatically read a barcode that we place at the top of the page. This allows the operator to automatically call in the appropriate template, be it a standard template from the large library that's provided, or even custom templates like the one that you saw created earlier that with Zach with a little ticket, and we'll show that one as well. What's nice about reading the barcode is that the operator then avoids having to interact too much with the tablet, wanting to keep your hands free when you're actually cutting. One way to do that is to install a barcode reader. As you can see, we've installed here. This barcode reader can work in a hands-free mode. You can press the little button, or you can just have the barcode read underneath it. One of our dealers, actually PFS in Southern California, had a very clever way to attach this, and I kind of have a demonstration here. We do recommend this particular scanner because of the way the stand works. So here, I'll get this, let's see if I can get this in the camera for you. So you'll see that what we've done is attached a little 1-inch square bracket, just got that at Home Depot for like 50 cents. And in the cutter itself are already these bolts. You see them kind of better on this side. And you can just remove this bolt and place this bracket holder here, and then place your barcode reader here. This avoids the user having to pick up the scanner, hold it, and scan it. It just stays in place perfectly and tucked back in this little corner for easy scanning hands-free. So that's just another trick. Now, of course, the scanner does connect via a USB cable. The one downside of the tablets and a lot of the PCs these days is that there's only one USB port. So an easy solution, of course, is to pick up a USB splitter, similar to the one that you see here, so that you can have multiple devices. But because of the amount of power draw on the cutters, we do recommend that you add a power source. So be sure you get one that's got a little power source so that you're having direct power to your USB splitter. That's very important because of the amount of power that's drawn from the cutter, and so you'll need a multiple splitter with a power source. Again, all of that we outlined in those documents, but just wanted to review that here in this session. Once you have gotten your software kit, it has in there directions of a website to go to download the software. Once, and again, as we mentioned, there's 2 modules, one that you would install in your pre-press area, one that you would install right here at your cutter. Once you've installed it, it'll walk you through a process to install the actual driver for the cutter itself. If there's a glitch, if you ran that before you had your cutter turned on or connected, then you may need to reinstall that driver. So there's a couple of key points here. When you run the installation, be sure you right-click over the installable executable, click Run as Administrator. You do need to have administrative rights during the installation process so that we can properly install the software and install the driver. If for some reason you run through the installation process before you have your cutter connected, then you may need to rerun the driver. To do that, you want to just point your Windows Explorer to your Program Files directory, your VRCut Controller directory, and then you'll see right here the ZADIG driver, ZADIG. When you double click on that, you can reinstall the driver to the system. So that would just be if for some reason you have trouble with your installation, you can always reinstall it, or if you change PCs and you need to reinstall the driver, it's right there available for you. Of course, we're always here to help. If you're on a current contract, licensing contract, like you get for free for the first year with the cutter provided by MBM, then we're happy to help you. You can just contact us with any questions at support@lightrod.com, and we'll walk you right through that process. Now, once you have installed the software, I'm going to go ahead and invoke the controller. I've intentionally left my cutter turned off because I just wanted to show you what would happen if you weren't connected yet. You clicked your connection and it's giving me an error that it can't find the cutter. Well, of course, because I've emulated it, not finding it by having it turned off. So I click OK.
Attention.
It says your cutter is not connected or turned on, so please turn your cutter on. And so if I turn my cutter on now, and when you turn it on, the light panel comes on. I just click the start command to get the cutter into its position. And I always like turning on the little light board here so that you can have more light as you're cutting. And now I'm going to go ahead and click connect again. This is what you see the first time you connect. When it's asking you, I'm not sure if we can zoom in on that a little bit. I know we're getting a lot of light on the screen here. And what it's saying here is that we have a CBC US VRS232 emulation card. And that is exactly the card that we have installed. You know for a fact that you've installed the right card because the manufacturer of the USB device found is Krug & Priester. Krug & Priester is the German manufacturer of these Triumph cutters. So that is the correct one. So we just simply click select.
Attention.
And now it is connected to the cutter. We kind of forget about how we always used to need to install drivers. We're so used to what they call plug and play, where you plug a mouse in or you plug in a new keyboard and it auto detects it and auto loads the software in Windows. Just back a few years ago, you always had to download drivers and reinstall drivers. And that's similar to the process here. We make it as automated as possible. But we do need to think about the idea that the Krug & Priester has a unique card that they have inside the cutter, and we do need to identify that card and make sure it's connected to the VRCut controller software. Again, any questions on that, we're happy to help. So that was one of the focuses of today's session, but I did want to just review for those who haven't seen previous sessions how the VRCut controller operates, because that's the fun part. So I'm going to just give you the typical operator experience. And I'm seeing a bit of light reflecting on this. Let me go ahead and see. I think that'll help a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and come in a little closer here, and you'll see, I think we can see that. It's a little hard to see. I think you saw it better probably in the demonstration, that there are little numbers that are placed into the PDF. And these are guiding numbers. It actually reflects the step number you're on and where the light beam will shine, where the blade is going to drop for the step. So let me demonstrate that. Let me just take a few of these sheets. I have set the cutter up the software up to automatically read that barcode. See how easy that was with having this little setup here. And we automatically are calling in the standard template 401. That's a standard size business card with a bleed edge, requiring a double cut on an 8.5 by 11 page. You can see that it pulls the jobs in that have been created. In fact, here's the one we just created for today's session. When we click open,
Jog to square stack.
it automatically, you can hear the audio, jog to square stack. The
Ready to cut
back
step 1.
gauge moves to its first position, which is indicated here. We have lots of indicators. The audio, we have the step number, the arrow to where it will be pointing. So actually, I started to hold this card upside down and then realizing I'm at step 3. So those little guidance numbers help you out to be sure you have your page turned correctly. As you place it in the page, and if you're familiar with using guillotines, the first 2 cuts you can adjust to make sure that the red light beam is lined up with the little crop mark there. Hard to see, but it is in this case perfectly lined up. So we go ahead, the safety mechanism typical on most Cutters are the two paddles. You press both paddles simultaneously. So guillotine is very easy to operate. But the challenge is knowing the right way to cut. Measuring all of the cuts, making sure you're accounting for the bleed edge. And so you can see how amazing this is, that it just automatically moves to the next position. You rotate and you're in the perfect spot to cut. Now, and again, it's hard for you to see this, but as I line up the second page, and this is, or the second cut, this is on the longer edge, and I can see that my printer was a little out of adjustment. So I'm not lined up with the crop mark. The Triumph cutters have this micro movement, so I can just very slightly move this little micro adjustment until it's perfectly lined up with the crop mark. Now again, do that on the first and second cut, and then every other cut will be based off of that. So I'm going to depress my two handles, and now I've made the perfect cut because I've adjusted it.
Rotate 90 clockwise.
And it will then make adjustments for each of the next cuts based on that first one. Now I'm going to rotate the page.
Scraps to trash.
And now, although I made an adjustment, it knows exactly where to cut to 3.5 inches.
Stack to workbench.
There's my first stack.
Ready to cut step 5.
You can hear the audio and see in the visual. I'm now going to place that on a workbench for future cuts.
Scraps to trash. Move stacks from workbench. Rotate 90 clockwise.
And now you place your stacks together.
Ready to cut step 6.
And I can see step 6 is putting the stack in upside down.
Scraps to trash.
And
Ready to cut step 7. Finished cards to pallet.
And you
Ready
can
to cut
see
step
that
8.
we get the perfect size cards, as well as you can see even from this cut I haven't cut off yet, that it's perfectly cutting off that little bit of bleed edge that we had programmed into that artwork. So we get this nice bleed edge document without all of the heartache of measuring and making sure we have everything appropriately designed. So that's an example of a standard template. One of the new features that we added this year is the ability to be able to create beyond the large library of standard templates that are provided. We do this through a technology unique to Lightrod called the Smart Layout Assistant. This is where you can enter your paper size, your cut size, and we will figure the optimum layout for your output device. In this case, the output device being the VRCut Ready Triumph Cutter. What we had created is a ticket size piece. I think it's 5.5 by 2.5 inches with a bleed edge. This unique piece is laid out in optimum fashion for this sheet size and then given a specific number. This case is given number 108. This barcode then will automatically call in the VRC file. The VRC file is a VRCut Ready file that contains all of the cut steps similar to what you see here. Can you imagine the amount of measuring this would take to be able to calculate everything that you needed to be appropriately cut this particular document? Not only that, because you can store your documents in the cloud now, including your VRC file, your designer doesn't even have to be in the same building as the cutter. And we're seeing a lot of that these days. Folks working from home can do all of the artwork, create all of the cut files, click save, and within moments, the operator can then print that document and cut. Let's take an example of how that would work for the document that we created today. Let me go ahead and close this job so that we can begin a new job. Again, we just automatically read that barcode with the hands-free barcode reader. And you can see in the background here, maybe we can zoom in just a little bit. You can see in the background here that we have the layout of the tickets. We also have the artwork that we just created for the job.
Jog to square step.
And now we have our visual layout.
Ready to cut step 1.
I know it looks pretty much like what we did before, and you get a little spoiled with how simple it is to cut these jobs. But keep in mind, this was, as you saw, all created on the fly. All of these measurements down to the thousandth of the inch, calculated, stored, and retrieved automatically. It's really quite an amazing product. That's probably why it's won several industry awards.
Rotate 90 clockwise. Ready to cut step 3. Scraps to trash.
Shops are always looking to bring more efficiency to their shop, and this is one of the ways you can really do that, particularly with reduced labor costs and, more importantly, reduced error. There's a lot of print that has to be redone because a single cut wasn't measured correctly, and you've ruined the entire print job. So by having something like the VRCut Ready Triumph Cutters, a system that gives you visualization and perfectly accurate layouts and cuts, is just amazing. So we hope you enjoyed that demo, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Thursday. This is Tuesday, Election Day. Hopefully everyone's voted, and we appreciate your time. Look for the videos up on our YouTube site. Also, you can click on the day of the presentation if you wanted to go review them, and it will just link you right over to those YouTube videos. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you at Thursday session when we talk about IntelliCut and the AeroCut Prime and Velocity Slitter Cutter Creasers.